Hi everyone, so welcome to Investing for Value. So if you'd looked at the market today, you would have noticed a certain company kind of just went boom and dropped 75%, which is an incredible drop. So something incredible must have happened, right? And if you're a shareholder, you're probably in shock and wondering why. Why is this company that used to be trading at $26, I think the closing price was, and now it's about $6.40, and it's got a valuation of still $1.62 billion, which is still a very large company. You basically have this company that used to be worth about $50 at its peak at the start of the year, giving a valuation of about 12 billion. So you've gone from like 12 billion to less than 2 billion at 1.62, which is an insanely big drop. So you must be wondering, something terrible must have happened. So we look at the headlines. Starbucks rival Luckin Coffee faked nearly half of its roughly 732 million in sales. I do have an issue with the headline, which I will discuss later on. But basically, like the COO apparently fabricated the orders, um, and apparently it's affecting about nearly half of the sales. Like if we read the company statement, it's roughly about 300 million US dollars. So in a sense, they still have about 400 million of revenue that is still certain believable until new information comes to the light. And if we read the announcement by the company, so like this is an issue that was reported to the board, so like by the audit committee on the financial statements for the full year. And then the board had a further look and noticed something was wrong. So notice one thing, that only the chief operating officer has been suspended in terms of the higher up management staff, meaning you have other management teams like the CEO, who is not implicated. You have the CFO, who runs the financials. They aren't implicated. So just a certain individual here, which was the COO. They've been with the company since May 2018. So yeah, they've had plenty of time to understand the company and even do some bad things. So we've only got this one individual who's had a hand in the destruction of this. So it kind of points out that maybe things aren't as bad throughout the whole company, because we're not looking at this whole company being fabricated and all the revenues are fake. We're just saying about 300 million of 700 million. So you're just looking at the base of the statement. Unless new information comes to light that it was all bad, we can still say a company that's producing 400 million in revenue still has certain value towards it. It's just a big question of how much and what kind of situation are we looking at. So essentially, they're pointing towards the second quarter to the fourth quarter of 2019, and the amount that's around about 2.2 billion yuan, which is the Chinese currency. So I just want to point out this certain word, that the aggregate sales associated with the fabricated transactions. So I want to point out that wording. That wording is just saying the amount of sales that are associated with this problem is around 2.2 billion. It doesn't mean that 2.2 billion is wiped off. It just means we don't know what's true, what's false about it, but we just know that that's as much as of the revenue that's been implicated, rather than what this article is saying. This article saying is Luckin Coffee faked nearly half of its sales, but that's actually not that true. If depending on who we're believing, if we believe the article, then yes, we can just cut off all that 300 million. But if we read the company statement, and if we go, what they're saying has some truth towards it, then some of that 300 million is actually still okay. So that in that sense, maybe it's not as terrible in terms of if you were still a buyer of this stock, this could potentially be an undervalued situation. It's terrible if you're a holder and you brought at these peaks of like $40 or even 26 when it last closed. But if you're thinking about buying right now, then I guess you want to consider what the situation is right now. So there was this previous release back in start of February where we had so what this report was saying, like there was allegations that this company had been potentially falsifying revenues back in is like I think in January, and then the company in the start of February did a little bit of looking, and then they came out with this report. But obviously we know that's true now, rather than when the company said um, this anonymous report contains misleading and false allegations. Turns out it is actually real. So what did this report contain? This report alleges that the number of items per store sold was inflated in the third quarter and the fourth quarter. So we can kind of see like it sounds like it's more the third and fourth quarter that have been, quite heavily inflated. And a report alleges items per order had declined from the second quarter to the fourth quarter, and selling price was inflated in the third quarter. So we can kind of see there is some select issues of, that this chief operating officer kind of tinkered with. So that's why potentially people in the company didn't know about it. And then it's also alleged Luckin Coffee overstated advertising expenses, and then they basically recycled the money. So basically they said, oh, advertising is going to be really expensive this year because we're a growth company. We want people to know our name, our brand, and then basically they take a certain amount of that money that they've just kind of over-exaggerated, and then taken that money and then put it back into the revenues. So when they look at the revenues, the money is actually there, but it hasn't actually come from actual customers. It's actually just come from the expenses. So in a sense, they're still actually just cycling the money around. So there is, in a sense, there is money there, but it just didn't come from the customers. It just came from the advertising. And then we can go alleged net revenues from other products were inflated in quarter 3 of 2019. So we can kind of see like there's a kind of a pattern. So we kind of look at this and go, okay, anything from quarter 2 to quarter 4 has a potential problem with anything the COO touched. So if we look at the presentation and we go, okay, assuming that stores could be verified, then they still have quite a few locations. We don't know if the numbers have been fabricated, but 3,680 stores is still a very large operation. Or if not, if we took it back to quarter 1 of 2019, when nothing's come up so far that those were like fabricated, they still had about 2,370 stores, which isn't too bad. And we kind of look at this. So if you look at kind of like the customer transactions, I don't think these numbers will be as believable now. But if we just look at quarter 1 of 2019, that was about 16,872, and obviously you can see these massive jumps here, and you can also see the items sold on a monthly basis, whereas they're growing here, and then maybe in quarter 4 to quarter 1 they kind of saw the CIO saw a bit of a decline. Maybe he was under pressure to improve sales, and then rather than say things declined on a monthly basis, he had to push things up. So potentially we're still looking around these numbers here to say what is true and what we can do a valuation on, rather than these two numbers which obviously jump quite highly and are basically false in a sense. So if we looking at these numbers and going, okay, they still have a very large store operation. They've just they raised about 300 million US dollars not too long ago. So they're still not too bad in terms of financials. They just had to restructure, they had to clarify these accounts, which would be an accounting thing, and usually for accounting restatements, that can take a very long time sometimes. It's not something that you go, oh, we've restated it and next week we'll have them out. It's months of work to reinstate this. And then there's also alleged lawsuits that will be coming their way because a lot of investors have lost a lot of money through misrepresentations. So the question is, what's this company worth? So if I'm going by what I'm kind of thinking that, okay, say 400 million isn't affected, and you potentially out that 300 million, let's say, just say 100 million isn't too bad. So we go like, what's a company with 500 million in revenues worth? Especially a company that's the rival to Starbucks. So it's a large operation. This isn't something that you just build overnight. It takes a bit of time. And I've actually spent a lot of money trying to build this operation up. And the only person implicated is this chief operating officer. So the CEO is fine, the CFO is fine. So we can kind of go. There's areas of the business that were well looked after in a certain way. We don't know how far this problem can go, but the board has said this has been flagged in the by auditors, and it's implicated the COO, and they have been suspended since. So assuming that's the only problems, um, I'd say there's still some value in this company, but of course the trust will be a bit lacking given the current situation. Um, is 1.62 billion, 62 billion a bit short for a company that could potentially have about 500 million in sales and be growing, they still could be growing quite well in China. Yeah, I'd say it's pretty like this pricing is probably low on the share price side. Assuming that's the only problems. Of course, there's a large amount of risk if you ever consider buying into this, because potentially if the whole company's implicated, everything's gone, or this company could be delisted from the stock market, could be suspended for many months while they do the accounting statements. So it isn't something that you just get into willy-nilly, and it's definitely not something you want to put a lot of money into either, because obviously there's something that's not gone well. Of course, some traders made some pretty good money when the share price came to 4 and then jumped back to as high as $10, but it has settled at that 640. Yeah, I say a lot of people have been getting out, and the question is, do you want to get in, or are you just happy to watch from the sideline? I personally took a little dip, which was just for like maybe just a bit of maybe I'm just that bored right now at home, so I'm just like, oh, that looks interesting. Um, but I also, if these are the good facts, I don't think it is as bad as the market has kind of like put it to, like at 75% down for a company whose sales could, potentially be affected by anywhere between 30%, around 30%. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not ideal, but I don't think the operation just collapses and goes away. I think their growth numbers were highly inflated. It's not showing to be a growth company. It's showing that, okay, there is some decline in the business, though they're opening quite a lot of stores. And I think anything that's competing with Starbucks, especially in China, potentially this company gets a bit of a bailout from local Chinese investors, but I don't think it just goes away. And it's, as I said previously, they did just raise about 300 million US dollars, which should keep the company um, ongoing while they sort this issue out. And I think they can just change the management and then just start going at it again. Though if new information does come in, this is the red herring. Like this is the problem. Essentially, if you're an investor, like the minute new information comes in, and if it implicates a CEO, if it implicates a CFO, then potentially we have a company that could have things could go even further than that. Though, you couldn't have an operation that people title as a rival of Starbucks unless you've got an operation that people can literally see everywhere. So there is some verification in terms of that, hey, this store exists, this network exists. They've done a heck of a lot of work to get to where they are right now. But potentially you have a COO who was under pressure to deliver on sales, and they basically took money. They basically exaggerated the expenses, redirected the money to the revenue side, so that the money did actually show in the bank account. Um, and he thought he would have gotten away with it, but he did not. This is where auditors have been doing their job, where auditors are actually good, and why audited statements have a little, have some substance to it. Like even some financial statements that have been audited may not always be that great. So I think it's a risky kind of stock to get into, but potentially one that has a decent reward. I think it's not something you want to put much into it, but certainly it's entertaining from my point of view anyway. Um, and I thought I'd just talk about it because I'm sure a lot of people are kind of wondering, because this is the stock that dropped so much recently and everyone wants to find out, is this a bargain or not. I think for me currently, on the basis of the facts, I think there's still some value, but that's just my opinion. And also the stock, if you ever do consider it, it comes with a huge amount of risk that, in this current stock market when everything's dropping, you could buy into some much better quality companies, which guarantees your investments, whereas this one, it does not guarantee much of your investment. So um, make your decision, do some research, with that consideration that this may be a very risky company. Yeah, let me know what your thoughts are about this company. Also, yeah, like if you want to add some value, like and subscribe. It was always really appreciated. Until then, good luck investing, and I'll see you guys later.